Have you ever wondered how the digestive system works? When we think of eating food and how it's digested, we most likely think about our mouth chewing the food, the stomach holding the food, and then our bodies excreting the food. But there's actually a lot more that's involved in digestion. So what do you think the process of food is? We've got ingestion, which is the intake of food, eating. Digestion, when food biomolecules are broken down either chemically or physically. Absorption, when cells absorb molecules for function and survival. And elimination, removal of anything that is not used or digested. Labelled here are all the organs our body uses to achieve this. And where does it begin? It begins as soon as food enters the mouth. As we can see here, parts of the mouth include lips, gums, teeth, hard and soft palate, tongue, and salivary glands. The mouth consists of both mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion is the physical breakdown of food. Food in the mouth is chewed, or emulsification of food, means smaller particles can be made, with thanks to our teeth which can chomp and grind food. Our tongue and palate also aids in the movement of particles, which allows food to be more easily swallowed and increases the surface area of food. This is very beneficial as it aids chemical digestion. So, chemical digestion is the breaking down of the chemical bonds found in food. Food is broken down by enzymes in saliva, such as salivary amylase, which is produced in the salivary glands, which can break down carbohydrates into carbohydrates, a sugar molecule. Saliva also lubricates food with the help of the tongue, making food an easily digestible ball called a bulbus. When this bulbus of food is swallowed, it then travels down the esophagus. This is a muscular tube which joins the mouth and the stomach. Starting from the throat all the way to the stomach, the esophagus is around 8 inches long with 2 layers of muscle, smooth and skeletal. The upper part is skeletal, the middle part being a mixture of the two, and the lower part is smooth. So you probably know when we swallow food, it travels down our esophagus, but do you know how these muscles move the food down? This is done with a series of wave-like contractions called peristalsis. Then the lower esophagus sphincter, a vascular valve, opens to allow food to enter the stomach. We can think of the stomach as a thick muscular bag with 3 layers of muscle which stores food. The fundus is at the top of the stomach and it has a cardiac sphincter which prevents the stomach contents going back up the esophagus. The body of the stomach is the main site of digestion, as this is where food is mixed and broken down. Food surface area is increased due to the rigid rugae, which flattens food, ready for digestion. It's important for food surface area to be increased so our organs can easily digest and absorb the nutrients we need. To do this, the stomach uses both chemical and mechanical digestion. Now, you may know that the stomach is very acidic, but do you know why this is? Well, this is because to break food down, acidity is needed, so the stomach secretes gastric juices of hydrochloric acid and the enzyme pepsin to do so. In mechanical digestion, the stomach churns, allowing these gastric juices to mix. This results in a more liquid state food called chyme. This is where glucose molecules are deactivated and where any pathogenic bacteria will be killed due to the high pH level of around 1.5. Although these juices are very acidic, the stomach is not damaged by this, as mucus is also secreted, forming a protective membrane to the stomach wall. There is another sphincter at the bottom of the stomach, so food does not travel down the duodenum until it is ready in around 2 hours' time. Now, you've probably noticed that I've missed this bit out. This is the tissues of the stomach wall, which we'll go into more detail later. But first, let's see where our food travels next. From the stomach, chyme is absorbed by the small intestine, but before absorption can take place, the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas, which sits just behind the stomach, all work together as accessory glands. Chyme is held in the top part of the small intestine, the duodenum. Once chyme is sited here, the liver secretes a bile and a digestive juice that digests fat and vitamins. The gallbladder is hollow in structure and is located under the liver. It is responsible for the storing and release of bile. When required, the gallbladder excretes bile through the bile ducts to the chyme. Chyme is mixed with bile, but the pancreas, an elongated organ located behind the stomach, also has ducts which secretes digestive juices, which include the enzymes pancreatic amylase, trypsin, and lipase, which break down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. This emulsification of fats breaks lipids into droplets due to the bile salts, which digest food more so, making the chyme ready for absorption. In fact, the liver is a very important organ when it comes to digestion, and not just because of its bile productions. The liver tissue is arranged in hexagon-like structures known as lobules. It has blood coming from the digestive organs and flows through the portal vein to the liver, carrying nutrients, medication, and toxic substance. The liver also receives blood supply from the hepatic artery, which delivers oxygenated blood from general circulation. Once they reach the liver, these substances are processed, stored, altered, detoxified, and passed back into the blood or released into the bowel to be eliminated. The functions that take place in the liver include the breakdown of fats to produce energy. The liver can convert carbohydrates into glycogen. The storage of glycogen helps ensure the level of sugar in blood glucose, stays constant by removing the sugar from the blood, which is supplied by the portal vein. The liver can also release sugar into the blood should blood sugar be too low. The liver can also convert amino acids by removing the NH2 group found in foods to match the body's requirements to produce energy or to make into carbohydrates and fats. This is achieved with a byproduct called ammonia, which is toxic, but the liver can convert this into urea, which is much less toxic. Urea is then released into the blood and transported to the kidneys and excreted through urine. Detoxification of many drugs and poisons are broken down in the liver. The liver can store iron and fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. And the liver can remove lactate, which can damage muscles. The transport of lactate to where the liver is can be converted into glucose or can be stored as glycogen. Now chyme is ready for absorption and digestion in the small intestine. The small intestine is around 6 meters long and is made up of the duodenum. This is the first section of the small intestine where most of the digestion occurs due to the breakdown of the bile secretions. The jejunum is the middle section where most of the absorption takes place. And finally, we have the ileum. This is the end section where anything that has not been absorbed is digested. If we look inside the small intestine, we'll see that it looks folded in structure. This is because it is covered in projections called villi, which increase the surface area to absorb nutrients from food. The epithelial cells which line these villi are covered in microvilli, which further this surface area of food. The transport of nutrients across these cells through the jejunum includes the passive transport of some carbohydrates and the active transport of amino acids, small peptides, vitamins, and most glucose. The villi here are much longer than they are in the duodenum or the ileum. The ileum is mainly to absorb vitamin D12, bile salts, and any products of digestion which were not absorbed. In fact, the small intestine has 4 tissue layers, but we'll look into that a bit later. Let's see where our food ends up next. From the ileum, food is then passed to the large intestine. The large intestine is the last part of digestion. It is shorter than the small intestine, measuring at around 1.5 meters, but it is longer in diameter. It includes cecum, colon, rectum, and anus. The first part of the large intestine is the cecum. This is a pouch that connects the small intestine to the colon, where food is received and is transported to the ascending colon. As food moves up here to the transverse colon, gut bacteria further breaks down the food. This is called fermentation, and here water and nutrients are absorbed and feces is formed. The descending colon stores feces that will eventually be emptied into the rectum. The sigmoid colon contracts to increase the pressure inside the colon, causing feces to move to the rectum. The rectum holds the feces awaiting elimination by defecation through the anus. So, to sum up, the main functions of the large intestine is the absorption of water and nutrients, formation and transport of feces, and chemical digestion by gut microbes. I want you to have a look at these microscopic tissues and have a go at figuring out which organs they belong to. I will give you a hint. 2 of these are part of the small intestine. Pause the video and have a go. So these 2 here are the ones for the small intestine, the duodenum and the ileum, and this one here is the stomach. Let's have a look at this in further detail. So to better understand this image, let's break it down a little. Do you remember this image? Well, it's this part here that we're looking at. This is the stomach's wall, and we can see the stomach has 4 layers of tissue: the mucosa, the submucosa, muscle layer, and serosa. Starting from the inner layer of the stomach, the mucosa, this is formed by a layer of surface epithelial, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosae. The surface epithelial is simple columnar epithelial which forms invaginations known as gastric pits, which connects to the glands of the stomach. These are called gastric glands. These gastric glands are throughout the inner surface of the stomach. They are made up of parietal cells, chief cells, and endocrine cells. The parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid, the chief cells secrete pepsin, and the endocrine cells secrete hormone-producing cells. The secretion of mucus comes from the surface mucus cells. The next layer is the submucosa. Blood vessels and lymphatics run through the submucosa. Its arrangements give a durable but flexibility to the stomach wall. Next, we have the muscula externa, which are the muscle layers. It has 3 types of muscle layers: the oblique layer, the circular layer, and the longitudinal layer. We can already see these formations differ, so let's investigate this more. These 3 muscle layers are designed for mechanical digestion. In the outer longitudinal layer, we can see the muscle tissue runs lengthways with the stomach, hence its name. This layer helps the movements of the stomach. The middle circular layer is thick and helps the movement of food to the duodenum. The inner oblique layer, we can see the muscle runs diagonally. This helps with the churning of food and digestion. In fact, the oblique layer is the only one out of the 3 that does not continue to the duodenum. Instead, it will taper off just before the pyloric sphincter. And lastly, for the stomach's histology, we have the serosa. This is the outer layer of the stomach wall. It consists of a layer of simple squamous epithelial which produces fluid which lubricates the stomach wall, ensuring smooth movements. So back to the small intestine, just like the stomach, it also has a mucosa, a submucosa, a muscularis, and a serosa, but unlike the stomach, it has villi and microvilli. Let's look more closely at this. The mucosa has vaginations of villi and by short tubular invaginations, crypts, which provide protection for stem cells. These stem cells line the walls of crypts and provide cell replenishment. The mucosa is lined with simple columnar epithelium consisting mostly of endocytes, which absorb nutrients, and goblet cells, which secrete mucus for movement. The submucosa is relatively unspecialized apart from in the duodenum, where many burner glands are present. These glands provide an alkaline mucus to neutralize acid, so if you're looking at some small intestines under the microscope, you can tell this is from the duodenum. The small intestine muscle layers consist of inner circular and outer longitudinal smooth muscle layers. So in regards to the burner glands, we already know one difference between the histology of the duodenum and the ileum, but can we see any more? Pause the video and see if you can find any. So let's go through these differences. These round lymph nodes are called prayer patches and they are present in the ileum, in the mucosa. Another difference is that the ileum has more goblet cells and the villi in the duodenum are longer than they are in the ileums. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation and thank you for watching.